Yes, get on your winner's V, your victory pose. Yes, put that V up. I want to say atta boy, atta girl, because we are achieving triumph through anything by being allergic to the average. And so, atta boy, atta girl. Welcome to this week's edition of You've Been Through Too Much to Be Average. And we're talking about average atheism and below average blasphemy. We're talking about when you're making God look bad, you're cursing God. Now, I've been places with people. I've been to with wealthy people, very highly educated, very highly accomplished, very highly professional people. And they would go and visit their kids at college, or the kids would come home and they would see the kids in these raggedy clothes or with this raggedy hair. And they're like, what are you doing? As much money as I pay for you to go to school, as much money as I spend on clothing, as much money as I spend on education, what are you doing? You have on these raggedy clothes, you're looking bad. And so I've seen wealthy people tell their kids, what do you have on? You're making us look bad. I spend too much money on clothing. And then I've seen, those of you who are a little older, you know that when you, the older people, the older generation, they would tell you before you went to visit somebody's house, don't ask for anything. If they offer you food, don't take it. Don't ask for anything. Don't get anything to drink, don't get anything to eat. The reason why they said that, hey Nicole, hey Marva, atta girl, the reason why these elderly people would say, before we leave home, you're going to eat or whatever, but before we go anywhere, we're going to get the rules straight. Hey Shanice, atta girl, before you go anywhere, you do not ask for anything. The reason why these elderly people were so adamant about you not asking for anything, because they were saying it was not about you getting something to eat, getting a piece of cake or a treat or a drink or something at somebody's house. They were thinking that when you go to someone's house and you ask for something to eat or you take something to eat, it makes your parents look bad as though they don't feed you, right? So that's an old, if you know any old people, you know about that thing. So yes, hey Nicole, attaboy. So the elderly people would say, listen, when we go over such and such house, don't ask for anything. Even if they offer you something, you don't ask. And some of us have gotten whoopings and spankings because, we had that grandmother or that great grandmother who took us somewhere and we took the cake or we took the pie, we took the piece of chicken, or don't even dare ask, right? And the reason these elderly people were saying that is because they're saying you make us look bad. Hey, Miss Natoli, attagirl, you're making it look like we don't feed you at home. Now, of course, it didn't mean all that, but the elderly people, because of their mindset, they would say, don't ask for anything, don't accept things because it make you look bad. But guess what? We do that same thing to God. We do that same thing to God. We make God look bad. And some people say, well, you can't make God look bad. God is great. God is omniscient. He's omnipotent. He's all powerful. He's beautiful. He's abundant. That's true. But then when he has people like you and I representing him, and we look ugly and we look bad, and we're always the people with our hand out, we're always the people in need of a blessing, we're cursing God, because the definition of blasphemy is to take the name of God in vain or to curse God, right? And so, really, when we think about our lives, sometimes people's lives, hey, Regina, attagirl, sometimes people's lives act as though it says that they're an atheist, that they don't believe in God. How is it that you believe in the abundant God, the loving God, the fruitful God, the God who owns everything, who has dominion over all territory, who has dominion over all things answer to him, and all things answer to those who are like him, yet you don't have all the time, yet you're always in despair. Now, God doesn't care about the word F-U-C-K, okay? He doesn't care about the F-bomb or the word sugar, honey, iced tea, right? He does care about, because those words mean nothing in other languages. Our curse words mean nothing in other languages, but guess what? Despair, poverty, lack, crime, hopelessness, all of those are concepts that translate across the globe. Let me say it again. A lot of curse words that we call curse words here in America, they mean nothing in other countries because we have a different language. However, concepts that actually are fluid throughout people's lives, that you can see poverty and lack and scarcity and hopelessness and despair, those are actual curse words. They are curse concepts that you can see throughout. So many times we think that, we're sheltering our kids by telling them, don't say the F-bomb around my kid. They shouldn't be watching that. Sugar, honey, iced tea. And of course, that's an acronym. You'll figure it out in a minute. Or words that are in the curse words that are in the Bible, like damn and ass and bastard and that kind of thing. We believe that, we're doing so much of a service to our kids when we tell our kids to watch out for those things, but really it's the concepts. Hey Tamisha, attagirl, it's the concepts of cursing that we need to watch out for, because many of us, we have that below average blasphemy. What do I mean? You take the name of God in vain. You wear the name of God and say that you're a Christian, that you're a child of God, that you serve the most high God, the abundant God, the bountiful God. Yet every time people see you, you're broken, busted, and disgusted. That is blasphemy. You're telling people people that your God doesn't provide. You're telling people that, you don't serve the God of more than enough. You serve the God of below average and not enough, and always in scarcity, always in need. And so our lives, a lot of times, we're actually, hey Toshiba, atta girl, we're actually in atheism. A lot of times you're saying to people there is no God. If you live the life that shows that God has not shown his hand in your life, many people may look at you and laugh. And guess what? Many unholy people, rappers, celebrities, a lot of people actually, hey, Miss Bentley, attaboy, a lot of people actually curse and mock what you say you believe in. Curse Christians, curse godly people, holy people, because they say, listen, if you're so this and that and you actually serve God and you're in church every time the door is open and you're always giving and you're always doing something. That's right, Carl, confession without possession, right? You're always talking about what God is this and God is that, and you're going to give your tithe and this kind of stuff, but you never have, okay? They're saying it's a mockery. I've heard rappers literally say people who worship Jesus, people who, go to church all the time, they're fools because they give their money over to, the church and the pastor, but they still don't have anything. They're still lacking. The pastor's driving this, the pastor has a jet. But in reality, a lot of times it has nothing to do, well, I'm not going to say nothing. It has more to do with you taking responsibility for your own prosperity, your own wealth to actually possess rather than just confess. And so, yeah, it kind of irks people sometimes. I'm not really irked by it because I'm one of those people, I say it all the time. There are people who find a way to win. There's those who find a way to lose. There's no in between. I'm finding a way to win. I'm committed to doing that. And so, but I think it upsets people, and it used to upset me that people in the world who are doing anything and everything are making a mockery of Christians, are making a mockery of holy people who have no intent whatsoever but to line their own pockets, to have their hedonists. They just want to have their own way, and anything that looks good to them and tastes good to them, whether they're exploiting people's daughters or sons, whether they're spreading diseases, whether they're corrupting the minds of our children and telling them it's okay to smoke weed and pop pills and sell drugs and be promiscuous. They really don't care about. All they care about is at the end of the night, will I get my check? As they say, will I get my bag so that I can go on and continue living my life? And they make a mockery, and it's no wonder that the gangs and the drug dealers and the celebrities have more influence over the kids. They recruit better. They actually have more pull in the streets, and that's why we fight different battles, or we have this ongoing battle, is because you have so much average atheism, people who are living average lives and accepting it and living with it, and accepting the fact that they never have enough. They're always in lack. They're always struggling. They're always sick. They're always sick and tired. They're always being abused by people. And because of that, your average life is telling people there is no God. That, hey, listen, if that's the God you're serving, I don't want anything to do with them. If that's the God you're serving, then guess what? He's not real to me. So that's atheism, guys. You may not believe that. You say, well, I believe in God, but really, what is your lifestyle saying? Okay, everyone can say that they believe. Everyone can confess. That's right, Nicole. Confess without possessing, but it takes a little more to make that happen. The first thing is you have to realize that that's you, and you have to get you have to become discontented. Let me say that. You cannot be content with the fact that you're always without. You're always the person with their hand out. You're always the person in need of a blessing. You're always the person in need of a miracle. You're always the person in the front of the prayer line that's needing, help. You're always you have to first acknowledge that it's you, and then also say, listen, I don't want that anymore. I don't want to curse God or use the name of God in vain. Yes, we many times get caught up on the wrong things. We major on the minors, as I've heard some people say. You're talking about, listen, I don't curse around my children. But guess what? The F-bomb and sugar honey iced tea and bastard and all those words, they mean nothing in other languages. They mean nothing to God, because these words didn't even exist centuries ago. But the concepts of cursing, the concepts of being cursed were in the Bible then. They're in the Bible. They're in the Quran. They're in the Torah. The concept of cursing and living a cursed life. Hey, Gerard, attaboy, those things are universal. The concept of being in despair, being in poverty, being in lack, not having enough, accepting not having enough. Hey, David, attaboy, those concepts are universal. Sugar, honey, iced tea, that word, you know what it spells out, right? The acronym. Or the F-bomb, the FU. Those words don't mean anything. Just, you can go a couple hundred miles to Mexico and they don't mean anything. But poverty is a universal concept. Lack is a universal concept. And when you accept and you become the poster child for poverty, for lack, for always being the one in need of a blessing, always being the one that is below average or average, that's just accepting and getting by. You got your head down, you're shuffling along, and you're just doing whatever it takes to get by. You're waiting on the next handout, the next help that somebody can give you. Guess what? That's a form of blasphemy. You're using the name of God in vain. You're saying, that's just like I just said, when you were little, those of you who are old, who are my age, let's say 35 or older, you know about those elders. It could have been your grandmother, it could have been your great grandmother, your great aunt, or whatever. They prep you before you leave. They say, listen, we're going over to Miss Nancy's house. When you get over there, do not ask for anything. Do not ask for anything to drink. Don't ask for any candy out of the candy dish. Do not ask for any food. If they're frying chicken and if they have fish or they have hamburgers, do not ask for anything. You're not hungry. You tell them that. And the kids are like, oh man, eat, because you know, kids, when you're young, you can eat all the time. And then stuff will be, you know, sensational. You will sensationalize stuff, and you know, it just smells good. They have cake, they have hot dogs or whatever, and you're just like, man, why can't I ask for anything? Why can't I? And they offered it to me, and kids have gotten home and gotten really, really bad, you know, spankings or whoopings or whatever, because, hey, Vashawn, attaboy, because your grandmother told you before you left. Even if they ask you, and that was the whole thing. People would say, well, I didn't ask for it, Grandma. They asked me that I want some cake, and guess what? You took the bait and you actually ate the cake. But why did I tell you that story? Because the reason why those elderly people did not want you to ask for anything or to accept anything, because that equated to them that whoever offered you the cake and you took it, they would have the right to say, hey, she's not feeding them at home. Those kids came over here hungry. Now, they could have had no truth to it whatsoever, but they feared that you would make them look bad, okay? They feared that you would make them look as though you were not fed, you were not nourished. And so, and a lot of times, elderly people are the same way. Do not go out of this house looking that way. Do not go out of this house with this and that. And guess what? And the reason they say that is because they're saying, listen, we work too hard. We sacrifice too much, especially those elderly people who were poor, who came up in poverty, who did everything they could to make ends meet. And they would say things like, whenever I get ready to meet for ends to meet, somebody moves the ends, right? Or I'm borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. Those people did everything that possible to put food on the table, to put clothes on the back of the kids. So when the kids went off and they were looking in a kind of way, hey, Atlas, attaboy, and the kids went off and you had on raggedy clothes, or you went off and you didn't wash your face, you were dirty, or you went off and asked for food at somebody's house, it made the elderly person feel as though you were making them look bad, that you weren't taken care of at home. But guess what, guys? Look at that same concept. When you go away from God's, when you spend all this time in God's house, you say you spend all this time in prayer, you're always fasting and praying, every time people see you, you got your face in the word. Every time people see you, you're saying this, you know, that you're a holy person. You don't drink, you don't smoke. But yet the people who are drinking, smoking, clubbing, sex, and doing everything else, they're living fabulous lives. I'm not saying that they're content on the inside. I know, like I said, a lot of times drugs and sex and stuff is a way to medicate feelings. But on the outside looking in, that's why kids are attracting to them, and why the gang members are getting more people, and the drug dealers and the rappers, is because these unholy people, okay, who are mocking you, they have nice cars and they have big wallets, and they go into the club and they can buy everybody a drink. You know, the Bible says, that good book I read says, he who wins souls is wise, right? So that you have people who, you know, they say that their music is satanic. They give away the free downloads. They give you the first hit for free, right? They give you entire albums for free. They go in the club and buy the bar. They put everything on me, as they say. But guess what? The people who are saying that, listen, we are called by the name of God, and God is saying, hey, you're making me look bad. Why? And yes, I'm going to get into it in a minute. This is why I call myself a confrontational speaker rather than a motivational speaker, because I want you to confront what's holding you down, what's holding you back, so that you can achieve triumph through anything, guys, and become allergic to the average. You can't see the rest of my shirt, but you all know how it goes. Attaboy, attagirl. Achieving triumph through anything by becoming allergic to the average. So I'm going to get to it in a minute, where God is actually mad. And people say, no, God is a loving God and he's not upset. He never gets, you don't know, you haven't studied, you don't know universal principles, you don't know the word, whether it's the Bible you study, the Torah, the Quran, whatever it is you study, you don't know, because God does get mad at us. And it's for the same reason of that average atheism, because you live an average life and you're okay with it, and you pass it on to your children and your children's children. You got it from your mama got it from her mama. Because y'all accept that and you're okay with it, it's like atheism. You're telling people that God doesn't exist, or basically they would rather not have that God, because to him they mean nothing. Because guess what? If you had nothing and then you add God and you still have nothing, that says that God is a zero, right? Let me say it again. So if you had nothing, you were struggling before you got into this life of holiness. You didn't have anything. You were struggling. You did not have an education, and you didn't know how want to go and get an education. You didn't have a great job, or you weren't giving your gift to the world. You never had enough money. You never had enough emotional stability to let tell people that they had to appreciate you and make people appreciate you in relationships. Hey Cynthia, atta girl, you never had enough esteem to have people appreciate you. You never had enough esteem to have your job appreciate you. So you never had any of that. You were always struggling and below average. And then you hook up with God and you say, I'm a Christian, and you say, I'm called by God's name, Christ. I'm a Christian. And then guess what? You still have all that lack. You still have all that poverty. You're telling people that God is a zero, okay? Because if I have a 1 and then I add something to it and I still have 1, guess what? That means whatever I added to it is a 0. So average atheism, below average blasphemy, is saying you're using the name of God in vain when you say, listen, that you live under the most high God, the most abundant God, that says, I have all things that pertain unto life and godliness to give you freely. If you need wisdom, ask. If you need wisdom on how to run a business, how to start a business, you need wisdom on how to network. You need wisdom on how to get your education. You need wisdom on how to manage your money. You need wisdom on how to have those tape sessions, those think and pray everyday sessions, so you can come up with innovations and solve problems that will earn great value in the world and get you a great check. God says, if you ask me from wisdom, I will give it to you. But nevertheless, we live those average lives. That I call it average atheism. You're telling people that God doesn't exist based on your lifestyle. You're telling people, hey, listen, I don't allow cursing around my kids. I don't curse around my kids. No, you don't use the F-bomb. No, you don't use sugar honey iced tea. No, you don't use you don't say assets, the word for donkey. You don't say any of that, but you use words like free, like poor, like we don't have, we can't, I won't. Hey Richard, attaboy. But you, guess what? But and you are some of the biggest curse words you can use, because you guys know my new slogan, okay? I've been with this for months now. Some people find a way to win. Some people find a way to lose. There's no in between. You're doing one or the other. So when you put but and you all the time, anytime somebody asks you, why did something fail? Why don't you have the results that you desire? Why is it that you're in the same place this year, this month, this week as you were last week, last month, last year? And the first thing out of your mouth is you or another person's name. It's not your. If you never ever take responsibility, the words but, the words you, the words poor, the words free, the words can't, the words won't. All right. Hey Jerry, attaboy. All those are curse words. Okay. All those, but negates everything that came before it. That's right, Richard. You say, so you're telling me you didn't get the job done. No, I didn't, but I did get it. No, it's no but. All right. It's no but. If the fireman came to your house and your house is on fire and they say, yo, listen, we're here. We made it in record time, but we don't have any hoses on the truck. So we got to go back. Come on, guys. All right. What if your airline pilot says, hey, listen, everything's good, but it's one little wheel squeaky. Come on, your airplane, you don't play with those things. And so many people, we get so caught up in majoring on the minors, okay? Curse words are, the curse words that we think about, those 4-letter words, they're social constructs, okay? The F-bomb, that word means nothing in Spanish. It means nothing in Italian. It means nothing in Portuguese. But guess what? The idea of poverty, everybody in the world knows about it. Everybody knows what it's like to be, to watch somebody, or to know what it is to be hungry, to lack, to have people doing all kinds of crazy things for money. Not just in this country, people, trafficking their own children to get drug money, all kinds of crazy things. Poverty and lack, when you accept those, okay, that is called average atheism or below average blasphemy. You're taking God's name in vain when you are sitting up paraded and God's saying, hey, babe, you're making me look bad. That's just like your grandmother saying, listen, when we go over Miss Jessie's house, do not When she asks you, do you want some pie? You better not say you want it, okay? Because that gives Miss Jessie the chance to say, listen, Miss Rolie or whatever your grandma's name is not feeding them, right? And guess what? When you say you're called by God's name, and we bring our kids up with this way, you put the people who follow you, the people who are under you, and I say it all the time, you're a leader whether you know it or not. And if it's not just on those you leading yourself, that's exactly right. That's that acronym, passing over opportunity repeatedly, or passing on opportunities repeatedly. When you allow people to see you living average and accepting it. Hey Chris, attaboy, you allow people to see you being below average. It's blasphemy, below average blasphemy. You're taking God's name in vain. You're cursing God's name. You're saying that the God who is the abundant God, hey Nishanta, attagirl, the abundant God, he's struggling to take care of his people. Okay, it's just like you leaving your grandmother's house, going to wherever y'all went, and you taking that cake, or better yet, you asking for the cake. That's why our kids are into gangs. That's why our kids let the rappers on TV, dictate their lives, and the people on these reality shows, because their lives look more attractive than yours. I put it in a post earlier this week. How can you attract people to God when your life is so unattractive? When every time people see you, you're broke, busted, and disgusted. You're the person that's always in need of a blessing. You're always the person saying, oh, it's more blessed to receive than to give, right? How crazy is that? That doesn't make sense. Yeah, it is more blessed to give than to receive, because what that translates into is it's more blessed to be in a position to give than to receive. Listen, if a person makes $80,000, $90,000 working at a factory, guess what? The person who owns the factory, who's writing those checks, he's making a whole lot more. Hey, Carol, attagirl. Hey, Garcia, attaboy. So listen, when we do not live up to what God is calling us to be, what he's calling us to have, what he's calling us to do, we are living below average blasphemy, or average atheism. We're telling people that there is no God, or we're cursing God's name, telling people that God doesn't take care of his business. And guess what? The fault is never in God. Yes, right. That's facts, Chris. Anytime, like I said, curse words like you and but, okay? They. Anytime, hey Maurice, attaboy, anytime people want to know, listen, why haven't you accomplished this? Why don't you, why don't your kids have this? Why don't this? And you always have an excuse why this, that, they. Okay, I'm not saying that they're not forces against you. I'm not saying that some of us start out behind the 8 ball and others start out with the advantage. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, when you say that you serve a God that's abundant and eternal, that has the wisdom, that knows what's in the darkness, that can give you the keys to anything you need, okay, all you have to do is abide by these universal principles and laws. Because those ungodly people that I just talked about, that mock godly and holy people, all they do is use the universal principles. All they do is use universal principles. Those principles, God never said you had to be a Christian to use them. He just said, listen, as long as the earth remains, there's going to be seed time and harvest. So guess what? As Richard just brought out earlier, guess what? An acronym that I adopted, I didn't make it up, but POUR stands for passing on opportunities repeatedly. Anytime there's an opportunity for you to sow, you don't do. And guess what? When it's time to eat, the Bible says you're going to beg when it's harvest time. So and the Bible says there'll always be poor people with us, right? Because there will be people who pass on opportunities. And then you stood up and hold the banner up saying you're a Christian. And God's like, no, man, you're making me look bad. Now listen, how you say, well, God doesn't get angry. God got angry. He gets angry. All right. Listen, it says, a lot of ungodly people, these rappers who stood up and make fun of us and say, make fun of y'all. Okay. The people who are not living this way. When you have rappers that say Christians are fools, and they're, why is it that they don't have? I've heard Muslim people say, I'll never be a Christian because they all broke, they all, sick, they all, talk about each other and have nothing to talk about rather than foolishness. And guess what? There are some people that believe that religion is the universal opiate. Okay, opiate, like heroin, a drug that numbs you and takes you out, right? So there's this theory. I can't remember whether I learned it in African Diaspora in the World, which is a class we had to take at Spelman in undergrad, or if I learned it when Dr. James Hill taught this African American Literature Institute here. After I started teaching school, but of course I was always investing in myself. I taught economics, but nevertheless I wanted to learn more about it. So I don't know where I learned it, but I know it was this thing. I don't know who talked about it, Langston Hughes or whoever talked about that. they were saying black people, but they're really saying oppressed people. That oppressed people have religion as a universal opiate. That the people who, the oppressors, the people who are in charge, and the people who have the wisdom, and the people who, you know, dictate the world. Hey, Shakina, atta girl. What they do is they use religion as a universal opiate to say, listen, you can do anything to black people. You can make them slaves. You can do anything to Mexicans, Indians, whatever. Make them slaves. Take everything from them. Don't let them own anything. Work them like dogs. Work them like mules. And when you give them that religion, they're gonna say, rock and say, yes, God is gonna make everything all right, right? So there are people that believe that religion is the universal opiate, and that people who believe in religion are stupid because you have no results. You're saying you believe in a God who loves you and who's for you and who cares for you and who has everything in control and will give you anything at the drop of a hat. But guess what? Yet and still you have nothing. You still are sick. You still are sick and tired. You still let people abuse you in relationships. You're so lonely and so needy that you see the red flags. You see the signs. And I heard somebody say red flags don't change color. And I also heard Maya Angelou say, when people show you who they are, believe them. But because you're so needy, you're so unfulfilled, yet you're saying you serve the abundant God, the omniscient, omnipresent God who has all power, who's present everywhere at all times, and he can fill you up. Yet and still you let people run over you. You let capitalism, you let systems run over you. You let people cause you to rent houses and apartments for years and years and never own You let people tell you, listen, come here in my neighborhood. It's bad credit, no problem. So you let people give you these outlandish interest rates for a piece of junk car, and by the time you finish paying for it, you paid for it 3 times, and then the car doesn't work anymore. So you're so caught up in things, yet you're saying that you serve the all-knowing, the all-powerful God. Guys, it's average atheism. Being average is telling people there is no God in your life, or that he's not really worth having. Or being below average is blasphemy. It's cursing God's name because you're telling God, say, I would rather you just not say that you belong to me. Okay, I put a post up earlier. I said, listen, God spits out lukewarm people. It says, listen, you're going to be hot or cold. In that good book, it talks about it. Look it up. It says, God says either you're going to be hot or cold. If you're lukewarm, if you're tearing between here and there, if you're asking for things and don't know what you're asking for, not really sure, don't ask me for anything. And he not only said that, he says, I'll spit you out of my mouth if you have not decided on whether you want to be wealthy or poor. You haven't decided whether or not one day you want to be in the handout line, the next day you want to be handing out things. God says, I'll spit you out of my mouth. So I said in the post, listen, God spits out lukewarm people, but the world spits on them. Yeah, let that sink in. Write that down. God spits out. I'm not saying he doesn't create them as in spit them out. He spits them out of his mouth because and the world spits on them, because the world will take advantage of you left and right if you are okay with being average and below average and never having and letting people always begging, oh, I hope I get the loan. Oh, I hope they get. And then when you hope and they see desperation on your face, they'll give it to you with a horrible interest rate. They'll give it to you with horrible terms. You got to put a huge down payment. And guess what? The down payment goes into their pocket. You never knew that, right? So really they find a way to work that in where your balance really doesn't go down. But people see desperation on you, and guess what? God spits out the lukewarm and the world spits on them. So you don't want to be lukewarm. Guess what? There's another statement that says fortune favors the bold. And some of you might not like this, but it's the truth. Fortune favors the bold, i.e. Donald Trump. Donald Trump says, I'm going to win regardless. I don't care about this, that, and the other. And like I said, there are ungodly people who use the principles of God because they're universal principles. God said, I'm not having respect to a person. If you're going to reap what you sow. So when it's sowing time, sow and take care of the seed and water the seed and do what you need to do. Study on how you better plant the seed, just like George Washington Carver. Study on how you better expand the business, how you better address your customers' needs. Just like a lot of people now, like I said, they're being super innovative to make sure that not just that they're making money, but that they're serving their customers. If you make your own only concern helping people and serving, the money will come. You will add value to the world. But God says, listen, I don't have a respect of a person. If this person is cursing, using the curse words we talk about, calling people B's and F-bombs and that kind of stuff, smoking, drinking, popping pills, corrupting the minds of our kids. But if they're willing to sow, they're going to reap. If they're willing to put in hours to put this music together, they're willing to sell things out of the back of their car until they get a record deal. Guess what? God says, I can't fault that. I won't fault that. Now, I'm not going to say that they're wealthy. A lot of them are rich because wealth starts from the inside out. Some of them are miserable. They end up addicted to things. They end up very promiscuous. They end up with disease. They end up killing themselves. I'm not saying they're happy, but they do achieve what a lot of people are trying to achieve. They get those material things because, hey, listen, life is better with them. Life is better when you can eat what you want. Life is better when you can help people in your family when they need it. Life is better when you can get medication when you need it. Life is better when you can get away and change the scenery. Just go to another state or another country. Life is better. I'm not going to act like it's not. So there are people who have nothing to, they never name the name of God, or they use it in a very generic way, right? And they don't profess to be Christians. They don't profess to be holy, but they live grand lives that you probably would love to have. But because fortune favors the bold, God says, I'll spit you out if you're lukewarm. You're either going to be hot or cold. Tell me you want it all or you want nothing, right? Don't play around and try to act like you want stuff, but then your actions say other things. So fortune favors the bold. Donald Trump, a lot of times he finds a way to end back up on top. He's done so many crazy things, so many negative things. He's been a very underhanded businessman. He talked about deporting immigrants and stuff, but then you find out that he used all these illegal immigrants and paid them under the table, paying them to build a lot of his venues and things around the country. He said he's done so many things, underhanded things. He's continuing to do it, but fortune favors the bold. I'm not saying God favors. I'm saying Napoleon Hill in his book Think and Grow Rich, he says that the universe kind of has a way of stepping aside and making room for the person who knows what he or she wants. If you know, hey, listen, I can't settle for this. I can't settle for average and below average. My mama didn't have, my grandma didn't have, my uncles and aunts didn't have, but it's over here. Yes, this certain thing runs in my family, but it's going to run right past me, right? Okay, yes, this certain thing runs in my family, but it runs right past me. It's going to run right past me, or not even right past me. It's going to run into this brick wall. Now it stops here, right? And so God, guess what? The Wolf of Wall Street. If you never watched The Wolf of Wall Street, that's one of my favorite movies. It's a lot of crazy language and scenes and stuff in there, but for several reasons, there's a lot of teachable truths in that movie. Guess what? That guy Bernie Madoff. These guys beat these people out of hundreds of millions of dollars. Not just millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, scam people out of it. Guess what? And a lot of them, Frank Lucas, okay, the guy who exported all that heroin, they did very, very few years in prison. A lot of them still have a lot of the money that they said they, I think Madoff died or something like that, or if he's not, they have money stashed because fortune favors the bold. People who know exactly what they want and won't settle for less, okay? Stop being caught up in this average atheism, saying that there's no God by your life. Your mouth is saying it. The Bible talks about that you give lip service, okay? You have this form of godliness, but you deny the power thereof. Your life says you have no power, even though every time the church doors open, every time somebody's on a Zoom call now, every time somebody looks at you, you're at work and you're on break time, you're reading the Bible, you're around your family, you're reading the Bible, but then they say, listen, she's still broke, he's still broke, she's still struggling with those same relationships of people abusing her and won't tell him to go on with their life or her to go on with their life, or her kids are still without. Guess what, guys? Fortune favors the bold. And God even says, hey, listen, I'm going to spit you out if you lukewarm. And not only will I spit you out, the world's going to spit on you. The world's going to have you work for them. You know why? I'll tell you the reason in a minute. I'll tell you the reason in a moment, okay? But fortune favors the bold. Now, God is not pleased. This is how you know God is angry. Remember, it was in the Gospels, right? A couple accounts of this. Look it up, all right? I'm not going to give you any direct scriptures. Do the study if you want to do it. Look it up in that good book I read, that best-selling book. All right, it says that Jesus went into the temple. Hey, Joanna, atta girl. It says when the people were in the temple selling doves and gambling and that kind of stuff and collecting money, he said that good book says Jesus went in there and knocked over all the tables. Why? Because listen, this is where it gets good. This is where this relates to what I'm talking about tonight, okay, about below average blasphemy, all right? When you are not living the way that God called you to live, when you are not doing what you were created to do, you don't have what God created you to have, guess what? God says, listen, the temple is made for worshiping. This is not what it's for. He went in there and knocked everything over. He was angry, right? He was angry because it was being used out of its name. The temple is for worship, for people to come and get help, for people to come and get silence, for people to come and get refuge. But they were using it as a den of thieves. They were using it as a den of collecting money, selling things, charging things, all this kind of stuff. And God says that's not what it's used for. Okay. And so guess what? We're going to break down the fig tree in a minute also. When he walked by the fig tree, Jesus walked by the fig tree. And because it wasn't bearing figs, he says, listen, you were put here not to look cute, not to give shade. You were put here to produce figs. And because you don't have figs, I'm mad at you. Guess what? You'll never produce another fig. Since you're going to pick and choose when you produce fruit. God says no. You remember I talked about before, I'm going to eat your cornbread? There are plenty of people waiting to eat your cornbread, okay? People who will take the opportunity. People who will use the principles that say, hey, listen, you're going to, when you sow, you're going to reap. When you give, is you got to keep that wheel spinning. You give, it just keeps that wheel coming back around to you. You're going to receive. There are principles. God says there are principles. The principles of compounding. It's so many principles. All these principles that people teach in success and achievement principles, they come straight out of the Bible, okay? And I'm not saying they might be in the Torah, the Quran, but the Torah is a part of the Bible. These are universal principles. God doesn't say, listen, it's just for Christian people. God says it's for people who will put these principles in action. You're going to produce fruit. So Jesus went into the temple, knocked over the tables, knocked over the people, the furniture and stuff, because he says, listen, you are not using this edifice for what it was created for. Guess what? Same thing. God says, listen, I'm angry when you are not using your life, your time, your energy, your money. Y'all hear me talk about the TM all the time. Your time, your energy, your money, your resources, the people, your relationships. When you're not using them to be great, to add great value to the world, to live and go see all the places that I have for you, all the beautiful. I've been some wonderful places, guys. Had some exotic food, met some exotic people, seen some wonderful creations and creatures and animals and natural wonders. And God says, listen, when you're not doing all that and you know it can be done, every place the sole of your foot has tread, you're not owning it. Hey, Kai, listen, you're not doing what God called you to do, and God says, I'm angry at that. I'll go in the temple and knock over stuff because you're using this as a collection place, and it's for worshiping. God says, you're a fig tree and you're up here just to hold up space. You're giving shade, and you're actually plugging up space when you're supposed to produce figs. You're supposed to feed people. God says, listen, you're supposed to be feeding people. Anytime you're calling my name, saying that you're a Christian, saying that you're a child of God, and you don't have, and you're not helping people, that's blasphemy. You're taking my name in vain. You're saying that God doesn't produce, he doesn't take care of, he doesn't create more than enough. He's not the God of abundance. Listen. The fig tree, God did not ask for any excuses. He didn't. What I love about Jesus, listen, guys, achieving triumph through anything by being allergic to the average. Attaboy, attagirl. Thank y'all for being on here tonight. But listen, one thing I discovered a long time ago, it just dawned on me. Holy Spirit brought it to me, and I said, listen, I love the way Jesus just did everything without doubt, without apology. He just walked up to stuff and just said, boom, boom, boom. Not let's pray about it. Not let's, let me ask the Father. Because he believed in what he owned in his mouthpiece, but because he believed that he was God and things would just happen, that's the kind of authority that he walked in, and that's the kind I love. So when Jesus passed by that fig tree and it had no figs on it, he didn't ask, hey, listen, how long has this been like this? What season is it? Is it really supposed to have figs or not? What about if the tiller didn't till right? God doesn't want excuses. When you're not producing, I just told you, there are worse curse words than the F-bomb and sugar honey iced tea and ass and all that kind of stuff. The worst curse words are but. Yeah, I did this, but. Well, do you have the results that I need? No, you have reasons. I was in a coaching program one time. It's reasons or results. If you have the results that you need, there's no need for reasons, okay? But you can't, won't. All these are curse words. Free, all right? Entitlement. Allowance, telling our kids that they just deserve things just for being there. What's up, Sherrod? Attaboy. And so whenever you are not producing, okay, God says, listen, I came by the fig tree. Jesus said, listen, you're not producing figs. That's what you're here for. You're not here for shade. You're not here to make sure the soil doesn't waste away. You're here to produce figs. You don't have any figs. Guess what? Somebody else will do what you don't want. Somebody's going to eat your cornbread, guys. If you're willing to accept not having, if you're willing to accept being in the same place this year as you were last year or even further behind, that's death. God is a God of life. He is the author of life. He's the author of abundance. So if you're going backwards, so let's say you're in the same place as you were last year, okay? You're still behind because you still use more resources. So it's either you're growing or you're not. Remember, some people find a way to win, some find a way to lose. There's no in between. Even if you say, well, I'm okay because I'm just breaking even. You're not breaking even because you used up more resources between now and last year. So your return on investment has gone down. If you're not growing, if you're not getting better, if you're not feeding more people, helping more people, you're operating in average atheism. You're telling people there's no God, or that your God is not worth it. You're telling people your God is a zero, because like I said, if you take any number and add something to it and you still have that same number, you added a zero. So if your life is the same as it was before you ever called on God, or before of the people who don't have God. Matter of fact, they're doing even better than you. You're saying that your God is a zero. That's atheism. That's called you're telling people they shouldn't believe in your God. Or blasphemy, below average blasphemy. You're okay. You're accepting. I got to get this in your mind, guys. It's not because there's no fault in God. There's no fault in the principles. Like I said, even if you don't believe in God. Hey, listen at this. Listen at this. You know how when you have certain foods, you may have some meat. You may have, let's talk about just natural foods. You have fruits and vegetables. You have maybe some pears, some oranges, some plums, some peaches, some mango, some bananas sitting in your fruit basket. Guess what? If you leave them there and you don't eat them, what happens? Okay, somebody tell me what happens. You have that beautiful bowl of fruit. I have a bowl on my table right now. Okay, you have a beautiful bowl of fruit. You have some mangoes, you have some avocados, you have bananas, apples, pears, you have grapes. If you leave it there and you don't eat it in time, what happens? It spoils. It spoils. God says, listen, you don't want it, I'll dry it up. Just like the fig tree, I will dry it up. And there are people who are using your principles. They rot. Yes, they rot. They're no good for anybody. Or guess what? Then you have the little bugs and flies and stuff. And then you have people that can use that mold and stuff to create medicine. And so it's on to the next stage. Somebody will use it, right? Somebody will use that stuff in the field. When you leave that stuff out there, it deteriorates. It goes into the soil. It fertilizes for the next crop. Or some animals come by and eat it. But if you're not willing to eat it, God says, listen, I'm a God of abundance. I don't believe in vacuums. I don't believe in open spaces in the universe. If you don't put a car in your garage, what does it end up as? A storage space, right? When you don't put you don't make it a mandate that you live, that you grow, that you earn, that you add value, that you're creating, that you're producing. Guess what? God says, okay, listen, just take my name off of it. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want anything to do with it. And so, yes, God says, and why is this? Let me tell you why this happens. Let me tell you why God is angry and why there are people who settle and say that they're Christians, say that they love God, they're holy, they don't talk about anybody, they go to work on time, they eat well. They save their money, they don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't slip around, but yet and still they have the most broken lives, and they're blaspheming God, they're cursing God, they're using God's name in vain. It's because God says this, if you, and this is it's in Isaiah, and I know it's in several other places as well. It says, listen, when you do not adhere to universal principles and laws, the word of God, if you call it that, when you do not adhere to universal principles, okay, it says that somebody will always take advantage of you and exploit you. It says that you will work for other people and they will become rich off. And listen, this is in Isaiah. It says, and I think it's in Proverbs as well. You will work for people, but you will never gain wealth. It says that you will always have people over you, slave drivers. Okay. It says that, you will never enjoy the fruits of your labor the way you should when you do not adhere to principles and laws. What does that mean? I used that acronym earlier. Richard put it up. I don't know if Richard's still on here. Rick, he put it on here earlier. That opportunity, he has a word that's slightly different from mine, but it really doesn't mean much difference. Hey, Tim, attaboy. But that acronym for POUR is passing over opportunities repeatedly. Or I say passing on opportunities repeatedly. Anytime there's an opportunity to sow, you pass on. Anytime there's opportunities to give, same thing, you pass on. Anytime there's an opportunity to invest in yourself, to develop yourself, to get up earlier, stay later, you pass on. And guess what? Because the Bible says when you don't sow, when you don't put in work, when it's seeding time, when it's harvest time, you're going to beg, right? So the reason why people are stuck in this thing, in this below average blasphemy, this average atheism, is because you don't adhere to principles. You think you're entitled. You think that, like I said, I talked about this before, when I talked about how free perpetuates poverty, when I talked about transaction theory. You think that, hey, as long as I can get by, if I'm always the person that can be blessed, I can get a blessing. God is blessing me. God says, okay, listen, you're never on the blessing end, so you're not a part of my family. My family is helping people. So if I'm always giving to you, that means I'm helping other families. You're not in the giving family. You're not in the dynasty. We actually write checks. We give out money. We add value. We make things better where we go. We're not always going there adding weight and liability to the boat. All right. And so it's principles. That's the thing. So you're going to get tired. You're going to be overworked and underpaid, and you'll be average and living a life that's atheistic, saying that there's no God. People will look at you and be repelled. People will look at you and they will not want to know what God you serve. Matter of fact, they'll mock your God, as I said, that some of the rappers and some of the celebrities do. So you have to know those principles. You have to be able to adhere to the principles. Now, I want to make sure that I always tell you this, that I want to give you directives. I want you to do something with this information. If not, you just wasted an hour of your life where you could have been shopping online, or, you know, doing something with your spouse or your kids, or reading a book or reading a magazine, something that you like. But I give you directives because this needs to be self-help, not shelf-help. I don't need you to put it up on the shelf and make the shelf more powerful, right? If this were a book, I need you to digest it, eat it, okay? And this is a book. It's based on my book, Better Than Average, all right? I need you. These are the directives I need you to do. Now, the first thing I need you to do, and I'm about to do this right now. Last week I got a little thrown off because I tried to do too many things and then I didn't do it the right way. So what I need to do is get my team to do it. But listen, I'm going to put a link up there. You can get my free ebook. And like I said, free is not always bad, but when you just only want free, that's when there's a problem. So listen, and it's not really necessarily free. It's not going to cost you any. It's not going to cost you any financial investment. There's no shipping and handling because this is an ebook. So it's no price whatsoever on it. All you need to do is log in and put your information in. Okay, so go to this link. I'm about to put a link up right now. And that's the first directive. I want you to get the Better Than Average book because most people don't think in the way of I gotta make sure that I'm above average. I gotta make sure that I'm better off next year than I was this year. A lot of people don't invest in themselves. A lot of people don't spend the time. And so I'm going to put the link up right now. I want to put the link up and I want you to go and fill out the information and get this free copy of my ebook. It's Better Than Average. 7 principles to achieving notable success in every area of your life. That's your finances, your relationship, your life work, or if you call it your life work and or your career, your job, making sure that you're leveling up, making sure they don't teach it in school. They don't teach this stuff in school. This is why I love what I do. They don't teach this in school. I'm putting it in the comments right now. They don't teach it in most churches, or they preach it, but they don't teach it. But most churches don't even preach it. But when you preach it, you got to teach it, because people, and I'll tell you this in a minute, I'll show you this in a minute, you can tell people all day long, you need to do this. You need to stop accepting average and below average because you're making God look bad. You're making God angry. I don't want him to have to force you to be great. And I was talking about that long before this pandemic came out. Now the pandemic, thank you, Nashanta, Attagirl. But now when the pandemic came out, I start talking about it more, how God is forcing us to have some innovations, some creativity, doing some things we could have been doing all along, but God forced us to, just like my virtual course, the online video course. My coaches had been telling me for a while to do that. People have been telling me for a while. I didn't do it when it came to the point where I couldn't speak and go and sit with people and stand up in front of people and talk, but I still needed to get to them and help them to empower their minds and elevate their lives. I went ahead, bit the bullet and did it, and it's been blessing so many people, been blessing my life. God has been enlarging my territory by just blessing me to bless people. But nevertheless, let me put this link up here. All right, that's the link. You're going to put your information in. You're going to get my free ebook. All right, you're going to get my free ebook when you put this information in. Let me make sure I put in the right link, right? Because last week it did not. Yep, that's it. So that's the first directive tonight. That's the first directive. I want you to click on that link. You don't have to do it now. Just stay focused. All right, that's the first directive I want you to do. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to say you deserve better. Now, this is not foolishness. This is not silly. It's true, okay? This is the kind of stuff I teach in that book as well as in the course that's based on it, the Better Than Average Mindset Makeover course. That's the virtual course that I've been having people. I put them to work. They get work to work, applying the principles. They're in the mastermind group where we call and talk to business people and all that kind of stuff and talk about investing. We talk about businesses. We talk about, your relationships, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not offering that tonight. If you want to do it, inbox me and I'll put you on there. But tonight I'm giving just the free book away, and I want you to do these other directives. The next thing I want you to do after you enroll to get that book is listen. I want you to say you deserve better. And even if you don't believe it, especially if you don't believe it. Now, what is that? Hey, Joanne, Attagirl, listen, I want you to say that you deserve better, than average. You deserve better than below average. You're going to stop blaspheming God by being a below average person and living that way, saying that you love God and God loves you, but you're making people look you're making it seem as though God doesn't take care of his people, that God doesn't have abundance, that God doesn't have a whole world out there that you can have, that God doesn't have a dynasty that he has bequeathed to you. Okay, so you have to know and speak it that you deserve better, even if you don't know it, even if you don't believe it, because like I say it all the time, you don't become average or below average overnight. You're not going to become better than average or allergic to the average overnight. That's why I give away the books. That's why I actually allow people to purchase the books, to get into the courses, because you got to stay stay in the energy. That's why I'm on here several times a week, just jumping on, sharing things. I'm achieving triumph through anything by becoming allergic to the average. That's what the bottom part says, allergic to the average. So listen, even if you don't believe that you deserve better, that you deserve to have more than your mom and your grandmother had, that you deserve to have more than people overworking you and underpaying you, that you deserve to have more than just a little money to take a vacation once a year and you live for that time, and all the rest of the time you're miserable at work and you're miserable in your family. Even if you don't think that you deserve to have somebody who really loves you and who's not going to take advantage of you and who's not going to disrespect you, even if you don't think you deserve to have better, to be better than average, to be somewhere, to be so much better and greater next month or next year this time that you don't even recognize your old self. Even if you don't, I want you to say, I deserve better. I deserve to live a better than average life. I deserve to have more than enough. I deserve, those are affirmations. I talk about that in the book. We go deep into it in the Better Than Average Makeover Mindset Makeover course. But listen, you have to say you deserve better. Even just make it simple like that. You don't have to put all those other things with it now. Do that later. I deserve better than what I have now. I deserve to, and the reason, listen, I said, even if you don't believe it, especially if you don't believe it, you got to start saying it. You know why? Because like I said, a lot of people preach stuff. They tell you, oh, you need to get your life together. Oh, thank you, Nicole, atta girl. You need to stop fooling with people who don't care about you. You need to save money. You need to invest. They preach that to you, but they never teach you, so you don't know how to do it. So listen, a lot of people say, that you're telling them the wrong thing. How can they say they believe that they deserve something if they don't believe it? It's never going to happen. The good book that I read says that faith comes by hearing, and hearing comes by the word of God. You got to keep saying stuff until you believe it. Even if you don't believe it, even when you say, well, oh, I'm going to feel worse, you're not. You say things until you believe it. And when you believe it, the universe starts believing it. As a matter of fact, the universe believes it before you believe it. The universe just responds to words. As God said, let there be this, this, and this. God came to Adam and Eve and said, listen, what do you want to call this animal? An orangutan? Boom, you got it. What do you want to call this? Oh, a tortoise? Boom, you got it. What do you want to call this? Oh, a snail. You got it. Okay, so the universe believes before you believe. So even if you don't believe that you deserve better, I need you to start saying that you deserve to live an above average life. You deserve better. You deserve to have more than enough. You deserve to be a blessing and not always need a blessing. Just say those affirmations. Say that you deserve it. Say that God called you to be that. Say that God created you to do that. Because it's true even if you don't believe it. Sometimes we believe lies a lot of times quicker than we believe the truth, because that's the way you were brought up, because your school, your community, your family, your circumstances taught you that. I'm not faulting you. I'm saying if you stay that way, God is angry. God is mad when he walked by that fig tree and the fig tree was not doing that. So say that you deserve better, especially if you don't believe it. Keep saying it. Faith comes by hearing. You start believing it by keep hearing it. You keep hearing it. You keep hearing it. So that's the second directive. Number one was, I want you to click the link, get the free ebook. 2, say you deserve better. Whatever it is that you want, say you deserve it, even if you don't believe it, especially if you don't believe it. Number 3, I want you to evaluate the 5 areas of your life. And I want you to, based on this, I want you to ask this statement. Am I the same place I was last year, basically? Am I further behind, or am I further ahead than I was last year? Now, the 5 areas of your life. Your physical, that means your body, okay? Your physical and mental shape, your health, all right? Your health is on. Hey, Laurent. Hey, Laurent, that's my French friend. Attaboy. So evaluate the 5 aspects of your life. Your health, your physical and mental health, your relationships, your family, your friends, that kind of thing. Your finances, okay? Your career or life work, your profession, whatever you call it, okay? And then your spiritual life, your time with a higher power or your spiritual being. So evaluate those 5 areas of your life and ask yourself, am I in the same place I was this time last year? Am I further, or am I going backward? And remember, I told you, really is no such thing as you're in the same place, because if you're in the same place, you're actually going backward. Hey, Richard, that's right. I deserve it. I believe. I know you were still on here. Attaboy. So if you are in the same place, basically give or take a few dollars, give or take a few, whatever accomplishments, you really have gone backwards, because you've used more resources to get the same results, or the same results. So that means you're going backwards. So either you're going forward or you're going backwards. So that's the 3rd directive I need you to do tonight. The first one was what? I want you to enroll in my, subscribe and get the free ebook. It's free, guys. Read that book, Better Than Average, all right? There's no financial investment for that. If you want to take the course, inbox me or put it in the comments. You want to get in the mastermind course, it's only like $197. I'll get you in that. But tonight I'm not offering that. I'm giving you the free ebook so you can empower your mind, elevate your life, because God does not want you to blaspheme his name. God does not want to have to curse you because you're cursing him, okay? Because you are showing people that God either doesn't exist or your God is a zero. All right, so enroll and get the book. The second thing I need you to do is say that you deserve better. And even if you don't believe it, say it until you believe it. Faith comes by hearing, okay? The third thing is take the 5 areas of your life: your mental and physical health, your finances, your relationships, your spiritual, and your job and profession or life. Or, hey, precious Attagirl, I want you to take those 5 things and evaluate yourself. 1, am I in the same place, which really means you're going backwards? Have I moved backwards, or am I further ahead this year than I was this time last year? Or if you really want to be ambitious, you can say this time last month, right? The 4th thing I want you to do, okay, is find a why that's bigger than you. Nietzsche said, a big enough why will endure anyhow, okay? A big enough why will endure anyhow. Somebody else said it this way, okay? The bigger your why, the easier your how, okay? You might not know how you're going to get ahead. You might not know how you're going to sever the ties in that relationship or that person who's been abusing you mentally or socially or physically or whatever. You might not know how you're going to go ahead and start that business or expand that small-time business and make it full-time. You might not know how, but when you have a big enough why, it's going to motivate you. How many of you have seen the movie Pursuit of Happiness, based on the true life story of Chris Gardner? Will Smith played him, right? Because he and his son were sleeping on a urine-infested train station floor, okay? They were just, without food, without a place to stay. And he had his little baby son with him. He says, listen, I gotta succeed. I don't have the proper education, but I'm gonna go on Wall Street and make it happen. And he did. He's a millionaire now. He owns his own firm, but he went on Wall Street without the proper education, without the proper pedigree, as they said, without the proper clothes, whatever. He made it happen because his why was big. His why was, if I don't do this, we don't eat. We don't have anywhere to sleep. I'm failing my son, right? And so find a why that's bigger than you. Because guess what? If it's just about you feeling good and eating good and going and travel, you let yourself down. You say, oh, really? Well, you know what? I can't miss what I never had, so I'm not going to get to travel. Okay, oh, well, I'm not going to get to go on vacation except once a year when everybody else goes, when the average people go and it's crowded and it's hot and everything's overpriced, because the people who really know what's going on, they know about supply and demand, so they're going to overcharge you for things that you're going to be hot and disgusted. You're hollering at your kids because they're not enjoying themselves, but they're hot and disgusted. But you will accept that and say, hey, listen, yeah, I don't enjoy my job, but at least I get to go home every night and have a drink. I get to party with my friends on the weekend and put a little meat on the grill. You'll accept that kind of stuff when it's just about you. But when you say, listen, I want to take care of my mom. I want to make sure my kids never have to go through this. Not hard times, but just say, I want to make sure that my kids never know what it's like for daddy to have to do this or show them this or whatever. They never have to see that kind of thing. I want to make sure that I can help millions of people. Hey, Uncle Reggie, attaboy. I want to make sure that I can, whenever times get hard like we're in now, I can give to people. I can bless people. I want to make sure that my grandmother who raised me, that I can take her on her dream vacation to Europe or whatever. Make your why bigger than you, and you will find a way to make it happen. Like I said, it's not even about finding a way to make it happen. One of my favorite slogans, my phrases that I coined is this: when you commit to a plan, you'll see God's hand. When you say, I've had enough, I cannot accept being average, because that is showing that that's an atheist policy. I'm showing that God doesn't exist when I'm just like everybody else or worse off than everybody else. And even the rappers and the ungodly people are using my dad's principles to be a part of the dynasty, and I'm not even using them. All right, so when you actually accept those things, when you actually get into the mode that I'm doing this for somebody else, it's going to change your mind. Hey, Robbie, Attagirl, it's going to change your attitude about achieving. It's going to say, listen, I cannot accept this because my mom is depending on me. My grandma, the kids in my neighborhood are depending on me. Whenever things happen in my community and I need to give food or I need to do this, those people depend on me. So I cannot accept average and below average. So make your why bigger than you. That was the 4th directive for tonight. The 5th one, I want you to go and read about the fig tree. I talked tonight about how Jesus was upset on several occasions when people were not living up to what he would call them to do. When he walked in the temple, and the temple was made for worship and refuge and solace, and people were in there gambling and cutting the food and collecting money, he turned over the tables simply because that was not what it's used for. So God says, I didn't put you here to be a laughing stock. I didn't put you here to be on welfare and beg all the time, to always be the person in need of a blessing instead of giving a blessing. He says, listen, we're the royal family. We give blessings. We sign checks. Hey, Kim, Attagirl, we give out checks. We actually buy vehicles for people. We're not the ones who always need the handout. I'm not saying that you'll never need anything in your life, but I'm saying God's way is saying, listen, we have more than enough. And so I need you to go and read about the fig tree. Okay, I think it's told at least 1 or 2 times in the Gospels, because you know Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they were hanging together. Whatever, they all had sometimes had a little different deviation of the story. But go and read about when Jesus cursed the fig tree. Also, when Jesus turned over the tables in the temple, because he was upset that people were not producing what they're supposed to produce. They were not producing how they're supposed to be produced. All right. The fifth thing to the sixth thing, because I really gave you an extra one that I just said go and enroll in the and get the free ebook. You don't have to enroll in the course. If you want to get in the Mindset Makeover virtual course, okay, where we go really deep into this stuff, just inbox me or put it in the messages. I'll give you that link. But the link I have tonight is I want you to put in your email address and get the free ebook, my free ebook, Better Than Average. This book right here, okay? Get this book, Better Than Average. I'm giving it away for free tonight. It's an ebook, so there's no shipping and handling. You don't pay anything. The only investment you make is the time to get there. Some people won't even want to do that, all right? So pour means passing on opportunities repeatedly. Seed time and harvest. When it's time to seed into the ground, most people don't want to do it. I mean, yet there are rappers and drug dealers who say, listen, I'm going to put in the work, and guess what? They get the harvest back. God has no respecter of person, all right? Now, the last thing directive I want you to do is to ask and be willing to receive, all right? Ask for better. Ask for better than average and allergic to the average. Ask for more than what you have now. The book of Jabez, I just revisited that. That was real popular some years back, but guess what? We get hyped up about things and then it dies down. But I revisited that. God led me to revisit that a couple of weeks ago. I did what it says, and guess what? He said the main thing he says, a lot of people don't have simply because they don't ask. All right, so just ask God. Say, God, I want more. I cannot accept, being poor. My family is generational. I cannot accept being addicted to things. I cannot accept having somebody overwork me and underpay me. I have too much value. I have too much talent. Okay, I have too much value to add to the world for people, to disrespect me, and for capitalism to have its foot on my neck. I have too much going for me. I have your DNA inside me. I'm a creative being. I'm an innovative being. I have life. I have abundance. So ask God, say, listen, I want more, and be willing to receive. That's the second thing. Be willing to receive. For instance, I've seen people that ask people, or people want to bless them and say, hey, listen, I got all this fruit for you. I got all these vegetables, but I need you to just get a truck and come and pick it up. And guess what? People are not willing to receive. They have that welfare mentality. I want you to bring it to me, or I can't. If people are giving you an abundance of things free, you can find a way to get there, right? You can, if they want to bless you, to even bless people in your neighborhood and say, listen, I got all this stuff. I need you to go and help hand it out, but you got to come and pick it up. You have to make sure. Thanks, attaboy. You got to make sure that when you ask, you are willing to receive, because willing to receive doesn't just mean you got your hand out. It means whatever God asks you to do to make sure you can secure it. If God says, okay, I'm going to give you the house, but I need you to do these steps to clean up your credit. I need you to do this, this, and this. Some people don't want to do it. So ask and be willing to receive. So quickly recap the 6 things I need you to do tonight. They're short, or to make sure that you didn't spend this hour in vain with me, this little over an hour. Go to the link that's on the comments and click and get the free ebook. I'm giving it away free tonight, guys. Free, absolutely free. Only thing you need is to take a few minutes, a time investment. There's no money investment involved. All right, number 1, or that was a bonus. Number 1, say you deserve better, and say it even if you don't believe it. You start to believe it by saying it. That's a myth. You don't have to believe it to say it. You say it in order to believe it. Faith comes by hearing. Number 2, evaluate the 5 main areas of your life and ask yourself, am I worse off than I was this time last year? Am I better off, or am I the same? And I just said, if you're the same, you're really worse off, because you've used more resources to do nothing with. Number 3, find a why that's bigger than you. Whatever you want in life, make sure that you want it for a reason that's just bigger than you feeling good and you enjoy it, because you'll give up on yourself. You'll say, I'll accept, eating chicken all the time. I don't have to have lobster and scallions and that kind of stuff, or scallops. Okay, but when you say, listen, I want my grandmother, who has never left the city we live in, I want her to go across the country before she passes away, or I want to be able to help such and such who's dealing, the family is dealing with this, and I want to just go ahead and bless them with a car, whatever. That will motivate you more than anything. The next thing is go and read about the fig tree that Jesus cursed, as well as, hey, Emerald, attagirl, as well as read about when he turned over the tables in the temple, okay? And the last thing is just ask God for better and be willing to receive it. We have not because we ask not. I have snacks in my cabinet and in my pantry, and sometimes we get so many things, and people give us many things. We're blessed, and we get things, and then we get tired of the old stuff, and guess what? That stuff will never get eaten unless my kids go in there and look and then ask for it. Guess what? That's powerful. I'm gonna say it again. There are a lot of things you have in your cabinets and like my kids, unless they go and look, I forget that it's there and it'll spoil. But God says, listen, I'll let it spoil. I'll curse it before I let you just, blaspheme my name and say that you're a child of God, yet you're always broke, busted, and disgusted. Listen, please do the directives. Make sure you sign up for the ebook. If you want to get in the course, I wasn't offering that tonight, but if you want to, just inbox me. If you want to get into the multi-week virtual online video course, it's on a learning platform. You have directives. All right. I give you things to do to make sure that this absolutely empowers your mind and elevates your life. It's only $197. So if you want to do that, just inbox me or put it in the comments. I'm not going to put a link there. The only link you see tonight is for the free Better Than Average ebook. All right. It'll come to your phone. You can download it on your phone, or you can put the PDF on your phone, your tablet, whatever. Read it. It's free. You have to get in the mindset that I cannot settle for average and below average, because I'm blaspheming God. I'm saying that I'm really living a lifestyle of atheism. I'm showing people that there's no God when they look at me. All right. Listen, I love you all. It's been wonderful tonight. Thank you for being on here. Please share the video. I love the likes and the love that shows me. Of course, when you get that, there's endorphins released in you, so it does help. So I thank you for that. But most importantly, hey Marcus, attaboy, I want you to share this with people. I want you to share this with people. And thank you, Nicole, for putting the directives down just in case people didn't get them. I try to repeat them several times. I know I speak pretty fast, but because I'm very passionate about what I do, plus God's just flowing from me, I know I have to slow down, guys. But that's why you can go back and watch this again and again. I love the likes, the shares, or the likes and the loves, but really most importantly, I need you to share this with people, because we got to stop living blasphemous lives and atheist lives because we're saying in our mouth that God exists, but our bank accounts and our jobs versus our life work, we're not doing that. Our relationships, our health, our mental and physical health is saying otherwise. We gotta get past that, guys, because it's so much out here for us. I refuse to stay in a box. It's too much of this earth that I've seen. You saw some pictures up earlier, guys, in the week of the Cinque Terre, the fishing villages of Italy. I love it there. Awesome. Listen, it's so much out here for you that God created for you. And guess what? More importantly than you, your why is bigger. God wants you to help a lot of people. I want to help millions of people. I'm on my way there now. So share this video. All right. And make sure you do the directives. And listen, remember, you can learn your way out of every situation and onto any destination. Listen, we're achieving triumph through anything by becoming allergic to the average. So I did do that. Allergic to the average. Listen, I love you all. I'll see you next time. And attaboy, attagirl. I'll see y'all next time. Put your winner's pose, your winner's V, or your victory pose up. Okay, it sends the message that you have won, that you're a winner. All right, I love y'all. I'll see y'all next time.